The Cannon Fire podcast is powered by PewterReport.com. Pewter Report prides itself on being the most complete, comprehensive news source covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and delivering inside scoop on the team found nowhere else. If you want to be the first to read about breaking news on the Bucs, the inside scoop on what's really going on in one Buc place, and want more in-depth coverage and unmatched draft reporting than other sources offer, you've come to the right place. PewterReport.com, the official partner of the Cannon Fire podcast.
Yeah, big nasty Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby. Cannon Fire podcast, brother. If you ain't watching, you ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
It is first down and goal from the 5-yard line. Pass toward the end zone. Fade route. Caught ball. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans. Bucs lead 6-0. Again, fire those cannons 6 times.
Big shout out to Mr. Bucs Nation. Was able to jump in his live stream earlier and found out he's a huge fan of the show. Really awesome to find out. Thanks so much, man. Just wanted to give a quick plug. You can find him on YouTube at Mr. Bucs Nation. If you're new around here, I'm your host, Rhett, and my co-host, Mr. Bucs Football Evan. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Bucs Football. And this is the Cannon Fire podcast. Welcome back for episode 23 on YouTube and iTunes. Just for you. We try to do this show every week. It's been a slow off season, so I don't know about every week. But we're getting there. We're getting back in the groove here for episode 23. Welcome back to the show, guys. And it's been slow. I mean, there's really no other way to describe everything that's been going on throughout the league. I mean, league news in itself has been kind of slow. There's been some deals made, and we're going to talk about those today. There's been a lot going on with the Bucs the past 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks. Again, that's why we haven't really recorded in a couple of weeks. But Evan, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, it's been slow, so I'm kind of bored. There hasn't been a lot of Bucs news to talk about. We're going to kind of recap everything that's happened while we were gone. Some bigger news to come out of the Bucs. First and foremost, the Bucs have made some major cuts. Doug Martin, no longer a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, number 22, the muscle hamster, sent packing somewhere else. I hope to see him do well, if we're being honest here. He's a talented back. He can produce.
Yeah, and he's a back that he's been here for a while. So I mean, the few guys that have been here for a while have been Doug Martin, Levante David, Gerald McCoy, and DeMar Dotson. But I wish Doug the best of luck. I hope he does well. I hope he doesn't do well against the Bucs whenever he plays them. But I hope he does do well. He is a good guy.
He's a great guy, and you look back on the seasons he had, didn't have a lot of production with the Bucs, but the seasons he did have, he was breaking records, and the last great season he had, he finished, was it second or third for rushing yardage in the league? He was top 5, I know for a fact.
In 2015, he was second.
Second, and he was second behind, was it AP?
Adrian Peterson, yes.
AP. 2015 AP, God. So Doug Martin, no longer a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and that one kind of sucks because he's the most recent Buc that I've met. And he was a cool guy to talk to. He was little, so I can understand why they called him a muscle hamster, but hope he does well in other places. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Buccaneers cut defensive tackle Chris Baker. Not a lot of great things I can say about this guy. Really just kind of pisses you off when you think about it, man. If you gotta be honest here, the guy came in, pretty much robbed us for, what, 15 mil on a 3-year contract, barely lasted a year. He was supposed to be the smack talk of our defense and did absolutely nothing this year. Yeah,
he was a real free agency disappointment, but unfortunately, this Tampa Bay team has been used to free agency disappointment, so it's up to them to not be disappointed. And I think later in the show, I'm going to reveal some names that I think wouldn't get the Bucs disappointed.
And that's something we're going to touch on a little bit later in the show is free agency, so stay tuned for that and a little bit other Bucs news as well. But before we jump into that, let's focus on what more happened while we were gone. Some rumors floating around, some names kind of popping up here and there. You know, some bigger names, some smaller names, some names that have kind of flown under the radar that people aren't thinking about. And moves have been made, but one last cut the Bucs made before we get there. The Bucs cut veteran kicker Nick Folk. I wouldn't say veteran. He was on the team for a year. But Nick Folk has been cut off to miss kicks somewhere else. He's almost... Nick Folk, to me, is the kicker comparison to Josh McCown. If you really think about it, I like to picture him as a journeyman, just making his way wherever he needs to go. And he really wasn't even that bad until he came to Tampa. I don't know what happened, but he just didn't belong here. But Nick Folk is also no longer a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And the last thing we need to talk about that we didn't talk about before, the Bucs hired defensive line coach Brentson Buckner out of Arizona. And if you guys haven't been keeping tabs on that, Arizona has been a killer front four the past couple of years. I know they topped the... I know they finished top of the league in sacks in 2012, I think, was it?
It was, well, most recently it was 2016. They finished in the first in sacks. I believe they had 48. And the Bucs had 22 last season. So
last in the league.
Yep.
But one thing I really do like about Coach Buckner, he's coming in and he's made it very clear that he wants to bring back that nasty attitude on the front four that we haven't had in quite a long time. We talk about it pretty much anytime we bring up defensive line help. You look at a guy like Gerald McCoy, great defensive tackle, one of the best in the league when he's not being double and triple teamed. The guy can produce and put numbers on the board, but he simply can't be the only one doing it. But he's just not a nasty guy from the media standpoint. He can go out there and play with some attitude, but we need a Warren Sapp, and hopefully Coach Buckner can come in here and find us a guy to do just that. Maybe Bradley Chubb. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the show as well. But let's get to that free agency point you were talking about. I was going to have like a fun presentation for this. I was going to play the Price is Right theme and make it a game show style, but I hate to be honest with you, I never got around to doing that. I didn't think of it. I've had so much going on this week. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go down the list of Tampa Bay Buccaneer free agents. We're going to talk about who's on the roster and who's going to stay on the roster. Some of the bigger names in free agency for the Bucs. And then after that, we'll obviously take a look at the league standpoint and see who's coming into free agency and who could be a good fit for the Bucs. So we're going to do everything we can to cram all of this information and put a little bit of a twist on it. Okay, so here we go. First off the bat, I've got the list right up here. Doug Martin, top of the list. He's already gone. Brent Grimes, cornerback, right now, is an unrestricted free agent. His 2017 average contract was $6.75 million. You think he's going to stay?
This is a tough
This is a tough one. This is a hard one to start with. I think we started with probably the worst one because I think the rest of the list is just going to get a lot easier.
Yeah. Especially because this is the biggest free agent the Bucs have this year. Do I want him back? Yes. Should he be back? Yes. Will he be back? I'm going to go ahead and say I do think he's going to come back for one more season.
You think it's going to be one more and then that he's going to retire in Tampa?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think he'll get probably a 1 year, $6 million deal, maybe a 1 year, $7 million deal with some incentives in there for maybe interceptions, maybe like a Pro Bowl, something like that. Maybe it's a team wins 10 games or something. It's just some incentives in there, but I do think that Brent Grimes ends up coming back.
Been a while since we've seen a Bucs corner in the Pro Bowl. Been a
long
time.
Was the last one.
Who was it?
Darrelle Revis.
Really? I didn't know he made the Pro Bowl with the Bucs.
Yep, Darrelle Revis made the Pro Bowl with the Bucs. It was him and Gerald McCoy.
Oh, okay, my bad. I take that back. But still, it's been a couple of years. Taking a look at Brent Grimes, though, something I kind of wanted to put in there is it's still a very real possibility that Brent Grimes could retire or as much as I hate to say it, go play for another team for a little bit more money, especially if his wife has anything to say about it. But look at Brent Grimes at the cornerback position. Probably the best, for his age, the best cornerback we have on the field. Vernon Hargrave's coming into his own a little bit, but I just don't think he has... I just don't think he has... I don't know. It's hard to compare the two on athletic ability. But what I'm trying to say is that Brent Grimes staying in Tampa and looking at the free agency situation right now and who's being shopped around, Aqib Talib, a big name that we've been talking about the past couple of weeks, very real possibility to bring him back to Tampa. I'd like to say that the idea of Brent Grimes going anywhere else but Tampa is definitely going to influence how aggressively we pursue Aqib Talib. Now, I'm going to go on the record here, and I'm going to say that if Brent Grimes does not play in Tampa next year, I want to put my chips down and say that we will have Aqib Talib before the offseason's over. I have a hunch. I don't know. I don't know how you're feeling about Aqib Talib. I'd love to have him back. He's a guy that can definitely produce for a couple more years.
You know, I was actually talking to a few people the other day, and I don't have any sources on this or anything, but just like you said, I have that strange feeling that even if Grimes does come back, I have that strange feeling that they're
I think it'll work out, man.
I have that strange feeling they're going to sign Talib. I don't know why. I just do.
It's the Buccaneer spirit, I guess. You got to start bringing guys back eventually. It always happens. Everything comes full circle with the Bucs.
I guess. We'll see. Hopefully a Super Bowl comes full circle then.
Yeah, really. Moving on down the list, our next entry was Chris Baker. He is already gone. TJ Ward is fourth on that list, and as we have seen, actually, we didn't talk about this, but TJ Ward is declared for free agency, going to be testing out his options this offseason, not looking to return to Tampa Bay. What a disappointment. We misused the hell out of that guy. I really think he could have been something a little more than what he was here in Tampa.
Yeah, but it was also some of his own doing because he was. I'm not trying to start any speculation, but I just.
You think it has something to do with the marijuana scandal of a couple months ago?
I don't know really.
But
all I'm saying is he. Oh, that was a lot. All I'm saying is, let me see if I can word this the right way. He didn't fit in with the team. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna leave that at. He didn't fit in with the team. He's a good player. He was misused at times, but yeah, he just never worked out.
The dynamic wasn't there.
But yeah,
I got you, and that's definitely what you need to bring a team together. If the dynamic's not there, then it's simply not there. You could have the best players in the world, and if they don't get along, then you're not going to get much production out of them. But very, very unfortunate. I like the guy. I hope he goes somewhere else and succeeds. He's a very talented, strong safety. Moving on down the list, we have center Evan Smith. Evan Smith, a little bit of a smaller guy, but I had brought it up in a chat earlier. You know, Joe Hawley, a little bit of a smaller guy too. He came in clutch in a couple of positions, but Evan Smith, what you thinking?
Move
Marpet back to guard.
Well, I'll touch on that a bit later. What their options are there, but I don't think Evan Smith is going to be back. I think they're either going to sign a center and move Marpet back to guard, or they're just going to get a guard. Simple as that. If they get a guard, I could see him getting two guards, but I don't know if they will. So if they do sign a guard in free agency or draft a guard, I would suspect that Marpet is staying at center. Unless they sign a center and a guard in free agency, then Marpet will move back to guard, and Sweezy would likely honestly be gone if they would sign a guard in free agency. But yeah, I don't think Evan Smith is going to be back. He just wasn't. He's versatile, but he's just not good enough.
Remember when he changed his name?
Yeah, Evan
Dietrich Smith, right?
Yep.
I've always, ever since then, it's never clicked to me that he's just Evan Smith. I've always wanted to call him Evan Dietrich Smith. And ever since, I think it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I was still in high school when he changed his name. It just hasn't clicked for me. So Evan Smith, you're saying he's not going to be here. depending on, what happens in free agency. That is set to start on the 14th.
Yep.
Okay. Speaking of free agency starting up on the 14th, the other day I had said it started on the 11th, and I found out what starts on the 11th and why I got it confused. The 11th is daylight savings. And I remember seeing it on my calendar at work that the 11th is daylight savings, and I immediately just assumed it was free agency. Not sure why, but that's what happened. So that's where that confusion came from a couple of days ago. Moving on down the list, we have our backup hero, the bearded magician, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is going to be a free agent. Last year brought in $3 million on average. You think Fitz is staying? I think Fitz is staying. I don't think he's going anywhere. What's he going to do anywhere else? Same thing he did here? It's the cycle.
Yeah, well, it's tough. It really is, because it all depends on what your options are out there in free agency and in the draft with quarterbacks. If they don't think that there's a quarterback in free agency that's going to be better, then they're not going to do it. But, I mean, I do ultimately, though, think that Fitzpatrick stays, yes.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a chance he's not back, but I think he stays.
I think he's worth the money. He's a cheap option. Again, only brought in about $3 million last year. That's obviously more than some guys on the practice squad are making. But for a backup quarterback, a veteran quarterback, guy who's had starting experience, I really don't think there's any wrong you could do there, having him in the backup position. He did come in, win a couple of games for us this year. I like the guy in Tampa. Didn't really like him before, but he grew the beard and I started to like him a little more. But I think he stays. You think he stays, so we're gonna vote. We're gonna vote stays on that one. Now the next one on our list is a name that kind of popped up towards the second half of the year. We needed some pass rush help, and that's exactly what this guy gave us. That's Clinton McDonald, defensive tackle, finished with 5 sacks on the year, more than Chris Baker, who played practically the whole season. Clinton McDonald brought in the same amount, about $3 million last year. Is he staying, or is he going?
I would bring him back, and I'm going to say that he's going to stay. I think that they really value his leadership skills, and I think he's just a really good depth, rotational defensive tackle. I think he really performed well last year.
And that's the thing that not a lot of people talk about. Clinton McDonald hasn't been a name that's been thrown around too often the past couple of years, but he did come in and produce the second half of the season. Like you said, 5 sacks in however many games, pretty much half of what anyone else played on that front four. Chris Baker couldn't come in and do the job. Clinton McDonald picked up right where he left off, and right where he should have started, I guess. He put up a lot more numbers than Chris Baker did all season. But I like to believe that Clinton McDonald's staying. He's a great guy. He does a lot for the community as well. I see him on commercials all the time. He's doing stuff for the troops. He's doing stuff at MacDill Air Force Base. He's doing stuff for the schools. He's a great community guy. And the Bucs, honestly, I think we have a good selection of community guys. Clint McDonald, a great guy, great player. I would like to agree and say that he stays. Now, Joe Hawley is next on our list. And guys, if you actually haven't heard, the Bucs declined center Joe Hawley's option, making him an unrestricted free agent. So Joe said, screw it, gave away all of his possessions to charity, bought a van, and is going to live in the van and drive cross-country and document everything he does. It's pretty safe to assume the guy's retired now. I don't know if he's going to be able to make every trip in the van to every game, but just a pretty awesome story, man. You got to be quite the giving guy to go and do that. And Joe Hawley, it's really something I'm looking forward to following, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something interesting. It's definitely interesting. I think it's a good idea. He said, he thought that his career was pretty much over. He didn't really feel like there was, he thought he had a good career, and I agree. I thought he had a pretty good career, but I think what he's doing is the right thing, and I think it is going to be very interesting to see.
Best way to grab life by the horns, man. I mean, he's going out there and he's doing it. I've always kind of dreamed, I told myself if all else fails, I'll either be a trucker or I'll do exactly what he's doing. I'll just get a van and drive across the country because I've always wanted to see the world. Believe it or not, born and raised in Tampa, Florida, I have never seen snow. Never once seen snow. I've obviously seen pictures, but I have never witnessed snow or touched it or I don't know if there's a smell, but I've just never experienced...
There's no smell. There's no smell.
No smell? I'm not going to go around huffing snow now, but, you know, I've never been able to see it. So to see the world and see everything that happens day in and day out, that's got to be a dream. So good for Joe Hawley. Hope he does well for himself, man. Moving down the list, we have free safety Keith Tandy. Now, Keith Tandy has been on the Bucs roster for a while. I mean, he obviously hasn't been around for as long as guys like Gerald McCoy, like we brought up before, but he's stuck around for a couple of seasons. Free safety position, brought in a little under $1 million, $925,000 last year, and came in clutch. I want to say 2 games in a row in the 5-game stretch we had 2 seasons ago. Talented free safety, wasn't a starter all year, but a decent rotational player. What are you thinking? You think he's a cheap option, or you think he goes?
If they can get him for cheap, like really cheap, then yeah, but I think he goes elsewhere. I think they want to revamp the safety group. I think the only ones that are going to stay are fan favorite Chris Conti and Justin Evans.
Oh, yeah.
Conti is not a bad depth piece. I don't care what anybody says. I'm still going to stick to that. Chris Conti is not a bad depth piece. It's just he's just not consistent enough to be a starter. And, you know, it's a shame, but it's the truth. And, yeah, but I don't think Tandy's back. I think they look in free agency and late in the draft to find their safeties.
I'm always going to talk about it, but Chris Conti, man, I have flipped my script on Chris Conti. I used to hate the guy. I used to despise him. I've told the story about how, you know, I had posted on Instagram to cut Chris Conti, and he commented a heart. And he's really not that bad. Like you said, he's a great depth piece, but this past season, he really got his head in the game and showed up to play, and that's what he did. You could tell he was out there fighting for that starting spot, and he's doing a great job. And if he can only get better from where he's picked up, I think we'll be okay in that position, especially when you talk about depth and bringing anyone else in. He's a solid guy, and I like to believe Chris Conti stays. But Keith Tandy, on the other hand, like you said, can't get him for any cheaper. He's probably going to go, and that sucks because he's come in clutch for the Bucs plenty of times, man. He really is one of those guys. He's got a couple of plays to his name. He's not someone you look at on the depth chart and go, who's that? I like Keith Tandy. But ultimate decision is that Keith Tandy is going to be gone. Now, we're on the second half of our list. We've only got a couple of more names to go over. But we're getting there. We are getting there. So here we go further down on the list. Another defensive back made $775,000 last year. That's cornerback Robert McClain. If you don't remember Robert McClain's being called, if you don't remember his name being called at all this year, just remember week 2 against the Bears. He had the pick 6. And that was probably my favorite play of the year. The stadium blew up when that happened. So, Robert McClain, what you think?
You know, I'm actually probably one of the few that is a fan of McClain. I thought he did a nice job, and I thought that I thought he was a free agent hit. I didn't think, you know, I mean, you didn't give him big money or whatever. You know, you didn't give him, you know,
he didn't rob you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and you know, he just he produced. Was he a bit inconsistent? Yeah, the whole team was a bit inconsistent in 2017, but I mean, yeah, really. I think he should stay. If it was up to me, I would offer him a very similar deal to where he can even be competition for training camp again, and so I think he should stay. Now the real question is, do I think he will stay? And that's a whole different thing. But it's tough. It all depends on what money he wants. It really does. If he wants a cheap contract, I think he'll stay. If he doesn't, I think he's going to go. The only thing is I'm going to lean towards go because I think the Bucs want to get another cornerback. Even if Brent Grimes is re-signed, I do think they want to bring in another corner, whether it's in free agency or the draft.
Okay, so Robert McClain, you've got him leaving. I mean,
Yes.
I agree with you. The guy's pretty much being paid peanuts. Again, made less than $1 million, $775,000. Came in, did his job, did exactly what you need him to do. You had kind of brought up, bringing in new talent. I wouldn't expect the Bucs to keep him and try and pay him more, and I'm sure that's what he's going to want. So I can't agree with you there and say he's probably not going to be here, but you can't be unhappy with a guy. He came in, did his job, and that's exactly what you can ask him to do. Now, our next spot on the list is one of the most mixed reception players in recent memory for me. The guy's a running back, made $768,000 last year. Excuse me. We're talking about running back Charles Sims, number 34. I really don't have an opinion on Charles Sims. I'm not his biggest fan because whenever you give him the ball, he has that really bad habit of not running down the field with it. But he's not a bad receiving back either. If you get him on a screen, get him in space, he's pretty good at moving around with the football. But you look at a guy like Peyton Barber adding depth and the position we're in with the running back position, I don't think Charles Sims is coming back at all.
I don't think Sims will be back. I'm personally not a fan of Sims. He's one of the few on the team that I just don't really care for. I don't think he'll be back, and I just don't think so.
He stuck around for a while too.
Oh yeah, he stuck around all 4 years of his rookie contract. He was a decent player. He was a decent player in 2015. And when Doug Martin was there, but after that, just like you said, he has that tendency to just dance around, and he doesn't want to go upfield. And then, he had some fumbling issues, and just didn't really work out with Charles Sims. So I think he's going to go. The running back's another position that's going to be a big change. I remember on this show I predicted.
Oh yeah, this was second, third, fourth episode we were talking about this.
I think the Bucs running back room is going to look very different. I think there's going to be 2 to 3 new faces in free agency and the draft. I think they're going to get a running back. I think they're going to sign one and they're going to draft one.
All right, so 3 more big names on our list. We've got Charles Sims out the door. Here we go. The final 3, and these are guys, the way that we're doing this list is these are guys that are getting paid less and less and less, if you can believe that. We came out with the big guns, so here we go. Final 3, Adarius Glanton, outside linebacker, made $690,000 last year. Good depth, has a bit of a tackling issue, but overall a solid player. You think he stays?
I do. He had that leg injury on Monday night versus Atlanta. It wasn't good. I believe his leg snapped pretty much.
That one was nasty. I remember watching that game.
I think they're going to end up giving him a deal, very low risk and stuff, of course, and he's going to compete in training camp, so I think he's back.
Alrighty, man. Good depth at the linebacker position, too. I think we're pretty much set. All of those guys, I wouldn't guarantee that they'll be back next year, but I like the idea that they all come back next year because all of them really got out there and did their job. Can't really be too upset with anything they did this year. I think linebacker at the moment is our most solid position.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Last 2 on the list. This is going to be an offensive guard. He made $604,000 last year. This is Kevin Pamphile. What you think, man?
Yeah, Kevin Pamphile.
Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Good. It's tough. It's very difficult to predict. Because this is one of the tougher ones because this could go either way. I could see a world where the Bucs re-sign Kevin Pamphile to a 1-year prove-it deal, or I could see a world where they just let him walk. I ultimately believe that they're going to sign Kevin Pamphile. I think it's going to be a very not much money, maybe a 2-year deal worth maybe $10 million, where he's making $10 million. Like total in like incentives and stuff, so maybe he's making $4 million a year, $3 million a year, something very low risk, not really much guaranteed. And he can come in and compete for a job in training camp and you know,
do his job.
he's a guy who is also versatile. He can play guard, he can play tackle, he can play both guard positions. The only position I believe he hasn't played is center, so he still is somewhat valuable, and he is young. So I think the Bucs end up bringing him back.
Now, you did bring up how versatile he is. He can move around the line and play a lot of positions, but we had touched on that offensive guard position earlier in the show. If the Bucs look to bring someone in, whether it's the draft or free agency, they sign someone, move someone over, regardless. You think Pamphil's going to stay over guys like Sweezy and Ali Marpet, depending on anything that happens in the offseason? Because he is a good depth option. He's a solid player.
Yeah. That's a tough call. It really is. That's tough. I'm not really sure that I can give you an answer on that one.
Wow, I'm speechless.
I got to think about that for a couple minutes.
No, I mean, we can come back to it for sure, because we definitely have a little bit of time here. We are on our last spot on the list, and this is someone that a lot of people were clamoring for, and I have no doubt he's going to come back. I think he's our guy. He missed a couple of kicks, but that's okay. That is kicker Pat Murray. Made $540,000 last year. He is at the bottom of our list of free agency. He's coming back. He's coming back. We saved the best for last. It's an open and shut case.
He'll definitely be back. He'll be given probably a chance to compete. I don't think they're just going to hand him the job, but I think they're going to have him compete for the starting job. I think they will end up signing another veteran kicker, just so he can have another leg there. And
for Vinatieri.
Well, maybe. I think Vinatieri actually already re-signed with the Colts.
Yeah, I think he did too. I remember reading something about that. He was a free agent for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. I do think they're going to end up signing a veteran kicker, and Pat Murray will compete with him. Whether he wins the job, I don't know, but we will see.
All right, so that wraps up our free agency roundup. Now, we did talk about the NFL free agency options last week, so we're not going to sit here and talk another 20 minutes about that. But let's take our focus and shift towards the draft and everything that's been going on. We've been kind of updating each part of this section of the show. Free agency last week, the draft this week. We're probably going to talk about it again next episode. Let's talk about the draft and some interesting developments, because it really flipped me on my head. And when I had read the same message that you read, I didn't know if it was real. I didn't know if it was fake. I really doubted that it was fake. But it's something that we seriously need to talk about, and a very real possibility from a reliable source that we have is that Saquon Barkley is the #1 choice for the Buccaneers right now in the draft. The Bucs have the number 7 overall pick. The Browns actually announced the other day that the #1 overall pick is up for grabs. I don't know if the Bucs are going to be making a pursuit to have that happen. Let me see if I can pull this up here. It's way back here in the archives. I'll see if I can try and find the specific message. But let's talk about this, because I was under the impression, and I don't know if you were under the impression as well, but I was pretty much sold that pass rush was the way to go first round of the draft. I don't know anything about any other order for any of the other rounds. I didn't know if they were looking for a running back in the 2nd or 3rd round. I'd be pissed if they weren't. But now we have this idea floating around that Saquon Barkley is the pick, and we have a fairly reliable source. So let me see if I can pull it up here. It's around here somewhere.
Well, I would prefer not to pull it up, just because of confidentiality. But
that works.
I can just give you, a brief summary is that the Bucs are very interested in Saquon Barkley, as are many teams, of course. But they really like Saquon Barkley, and just what we received was that they wouldn't mind moving up for Saquon Barkley if the price is right, of course. They're not gonna go crazy and just say, what do you want? We'll give it to you. They're not gonna do that. They're gonna be smart about it. But it is a real possibility. Is it likely? Right now I would say no, but I'm just saying that it is a possibility based on what we know now.
And it's like you said, it is a possibility. And coming into the draft every year, you do have possibilities, rumors floating around, just like this one appears to be. But the question is, how is that going to affect free agency? If that's the plan, if the Bucs do want to go through and the deal is made, Bucs are able to trade up and get Saquon Barkley. Obviously, we're not going to find out until a lot closer to the draft. But one of my hopes for free agency was bringing in an already established running back. A guy, honestly, if I wanted to bring in a running back in free agency, I would be putting all of my chips in LeGarrette Blount. I think that reunion in Tampa is going to be the sweetest. The guy still has wheels. I want to see him back, and I want to see him beating the shit out of people like he did in Tampa before. Because, wow, he could hit. I mean, even when he got tackled at the end of the play, it would hurt. But now you throw this idea in there that Saquon Barkley is number 1 on the draft board. Really opens up all the possibilities for second round, third round, fourth round, because you are going to be missing out on top-tier pass rush guys in the first round like Bradley Chubb. So what does that leave you to do? What do you think would be the order of operations if Barkley is that number 1 pick? Well, first-round pick.
Well, I mean, for the Bucs, I mean, obviously since free agency comes first, I think you would see the Bucs not really go if they were planning on doing it. I think it would be a draft day trade, and we'll see. It would be a game time, a draft time right there. They're on whoever's on the clock, and the Bucs trade up. That's how it would be. But it's how it would affect free agency is I think you'd see the Bucs a little bit more on the defensive side of things. I think you would see them really go after defense hard with that.
Could have been Robert Quinn.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that a little bit as we wrap the show up here. Obviously, the shows are going to become more frequently now that the news is going to start picking up very soon, but we will see. But anyways, back to the point. I think you're going to see him go defense heavy in free agency. I think that might be a little hint that they're planning on doing something here. Whether taking Quentin Nelson early at 7 or whether it's trading up for a guy like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley will not be there at 7. It's not going to happen. In no way will it happen.
He is a once-in-a-lifetime prospect. I think someone brought that up the other day. Even his combine performance just recently was incredible. The guy was doing everything practically better than a lot of pros are doing it now, especially when you look back and compare the combine numbers. He was doing great.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty much solidified that number 1 pick. I mean, I don't know what the Browns are going to do, but he's a number 1 pick kind of guy, and it's amazing for a running back to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something. And it's the thing with Barkley is he's a good player, going to be a really good player. The only problem is if you're trading up for him, that's a big risk. So you better hope that he's going to be a great player. That he is going to be a great player. I'm going to use that again because if you're going to make that much of an investment in him, you got to be sure of it. You have to be. You can't go in there being, I hope we did the right thing. You got to be 100% confident that he is your guy. I would much rather trade up for Bradley Chubb, but I wouldn't be opposed to trading up for Saquon Barkley. But that's all, we've got that thing, but as of now, it's all speculation until we get some more things. So don't freak out. People who want Saquon Barkley, it doesn't mean he's coming to Tampa. Also, people who don't want Saquon Barkley, that doesn't mean he's coming to Tampa. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. It's gonna be interesting. But as we wrap the show up, just gonna give some of my my free agent targets, maybe, I guess you could say. Red, I don't know if you have any, but I know I have a list of probably 3 or 4 guys here that I think could be good fits.
Oh, I threw all mine in. I threw all mine in the pile last week.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, if you'd like me to start, I can.
Oh yeah, that's all you, brother.
I'm going to start with a guy on the offensive side of the ball, and it's center Ryan Jensen from the Baltimore Ravens. I think that it would definitely be a good thing to sign Jensen. He's still young. I believe he's 26. He's not going to demand too high of a contract, probably $6 million a year or so. But I think he brings a nastiness to the team. He's sort of like a Joe Hawley, but a bigger Joe Hawley. And this would allow the Buccaneers to move Marpet back to guard, and I think that would be a very good center and guard combination that you could use. Like I said, I wouldn't mind giving him a 4-year deal, $6 million a year. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think that's a huge part of your interior offensive line problem solved. So we'll see how all that plays out. I do think, based on what I know now, the Bucs seem to be interested in Ryan Jensen, which is a good thing because normally, the guys we always want, they don't normally get. So it's definitely interesting to see. So, the next few weeks, free agency starts. Tomorrow is Monday. And tomorrow, a week from tomorrow, is when the tampering period starts, the legal tampering period. Teams tamper all the time, but, it's what they can do. But the legal tampering period starts a week from tomorrow. And then free agency starts on Wednesday, March 14th. So it's going to be something interesting to see. And I think it'd be a good thing for the offensive line.
Go
ahead.
Bouncing off of what you had said, the guy is definitely a great player. Like you said, a bigger, meaner Joe Hawley. But back to our source before regarding Saquon Barkley, they had also stated that when free agency comes around, the Bucs are aiming for a veteran offensive line, looking for a third down back to compete with Barber. We'll talk about that maybe a little later or possibly the next episode. But that veteran offensive line, what a way to do it than to bring in a guy like that. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to throw that in there really quick.
Yeah, no problem. Speaking of a third down running back, my other target would be a guy like Jerick McKinnon or a guy like Isaiah Crowell, even though I don't see Isaiah Crowell coming. I don't think the Bucs are really interested just from what I've heard. So basically, I think Jerick McKinnon would be good. The only problem is I think there's going to be a lot of teams after McKinnon, and his price tag might get a little bit higher. But he's a very good. He's a better Charles Sims. He's Charles Sims, but he's better and more experienced, and he can run between the tackles better than Sims can. So now, it's definitely. Well, go ahead.
Now looking at a third down back, I'm just going to toss a name out there. Tell me how you feel about him. But Dion Lewis.
That name's been tossed to me a couple times. I wouldn't mind it because I think he's a good player, but he may be just a thing in New England system. We've seen that a ton. Dion Lewis struggled with the Browns, and he struggled with the Eagles, and then he went to New England and did well. So I don't really think the Bucs are in the market for him. It's a possibility, but I think Jerick McKinnon would be a better option for him. And then that way they can, if they sign a guy like Jerick McKinnon, I would probably say they're not trading up for Barkley. I would probably say that's not in plans. So, we will see. And my other guy, finally switching over to the defensive side of the ball, is cornerback Kyle Fuller. He's the brother of Kendall Fuller, who's with the Redskins, got traded to the Chiefs or whatever, and that whole thing where he didn't know if he was traded or not. He was a good player for the Bears. He's a young player. He had a couple of injuries to start off his career. He was always productive, and he's still young. I believe he's 26 or 25. He'll have a heavy market, but I think he's somebody that the Bucs should really be interested in, and I think he could be a solid number 2 cornerback right next to Brent Grimes, and I think it'd be a a good situation for, have Brent Grimes and Kendall Fuller on the outside with Kyle Fuller, with Vernon Hargreaves in the slot, and I think that would be a very good way to fix the cornerback position. It wouldn't be completely fixing it, but it would be a pretty good start.
Talking about Vernon Hargreaves, man, in the slot, he's really coming into his own. And something I had read from our buddies over at Pewter Report just recently was Jason Light had pretty much come out and said, they're not giving up hope on Vernon Hargreaves and look for him to develop a lot over the next year. I'm excited for that because I believe in the kid. I like VH3. I've always liked him. So really only hope he gets better. And like you said, an almost perfect situation for the cornerback position. But free agency and targets and cornerbacks, the deal might happen, but I'm still sold on Aqib Talib coming in that position if we're getting anyone, man.
It's a possibility. I mean, first he's got to be cut. So, I mean, I'm just basing it on guys that are free agents right now. So it is a possibility if he's cut. I could definitely see it. The last thing I'm going to give you is Dontari Poe, defensive tackle. He's a good player. The Bucs are apparently interested in him, and I think he would fit in well right next to McCoy. I think it would be some real help from McCoy. Poe's a better player than Baker, and Poe is younger than Baker was when Baker was signed. Poe is 27, and it's rumored that the Buccaneers do have interest in Dontari Poe, as do other teams. But he's a good player, and his price tag will be high, but I think it'll be worth it. So it's going to be interesting to see. But that pretty much rounds out what I got for this episode regarding free agency and stuff. So I'm going to kick it over to you, see if we got anything more, or we can say peace out, whatever you want. Don't matter to me.
I got you, man. One more thing we'll talk about before we wrap up the show, just a couple of minutes here, is the situation with Robert Quinn, defensive end for the Rams, was just sent packing to Miami in a trade for a hot dog and half of a season membership. But Robert Quinn, a great talent, a guy that, like I brought up before, I had never heard his name a lot the past 2 years, but apparently he was able to produce after they switched that scheme. But I was initially upset that people were upset over it. I came out, and I'll apologize for that. I didn't mean to come out and tell everybody to settle the hell down, but at first I had seen everyone getting upset over Robert Quinn, and I hadn't heard anything about the guy. Hadn't heard anyone say a peep about bringing Robert Quinn to Tampa. But it turns out the Bucs actually threw an offer out there, and I think it was for a 4th-round pick.
Yes, the Bucs.
It was declined, so you can't say we didn't try.
Yeah, and the main reason it was declined, I believe, was because the Bucs are in the NFC, and I don't think the Rams wanted to send Robert Quinn to a team like the Bucs, which has talent. The Rams knew the Bucs had talent, and I don't think they wanted to send them a good player at a need, because they knew that they were in the NFC and they could possibly be competing against them. So they send them to the AFC, and so
that's a good feeling, I guess. Other teams recognize that you have talent. I don't know. Maybe we'll put some of that to display this coming season. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. It's been a pleasure having you listen to us. If you haven't already, make sure you go follow us on Instagram at Cannon Fire Podcast. Actually, thank you guys. We did just hit 400 followers on Instagram. Woot woot. So now we are on our way to hitting 200 subs on YouTube. Last I checked, we're at 113 or 114. But everyone who supported the show thus far, we continue to grow. Thank you guys so much. Let's keep kicking ass. But like I said, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at Cannon Fire Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Cannon Fire Podcast. And leave a 5-star review on iTunes if you're listening on there as well. You can find Evan at Bucs Football on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you go check out our partners, PewterReport.com. They're on Instagram and Twitter at Pewter Report. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember, the Eagles suck and the Bucs do not. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.